Now, E. coli, it's no joke. More than half of Lidl's chicken has been found to be contaminated with drug-resistant superbugs and E. coli.
And this comes after campaign group Open Cages conducted a sample test of 40 products from stores right across the country.
Lidl has responded to this by saying our own testing shows that in the last 12 months there have been no micro-related deviations outside of legal levels and no concerns have been raised to us by any regulatory bodies on this topic.
OK, let's look into this outbreak and what it means for all of us here. Wellbeing expert Monica Price. Monica, good morning to you.
Good morning, Eamon. Good morning, Isabel.
Morning.
Quite scary, this. What is E. coli? What does it do to you and where does it come from?
Yeah, good questions, Eamon. I mean, we're seeing an increasing rise of this, and E. coli is something when you eat contaminated food or water. So the usual things are undercooked meats themselves, and leafy green vegetables that haven't been washed. Or you can also get it by coming into contact with somebody who already has it. It's called STEC, so it's a term used for a group of the bacteria. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is an increase. We had an outbreak last year with 27 cases, which was found to be linked to uncooked meats. And then the year before that, we had just under 300. And it doesn't sound a lot, but the problem is with E. coli, it's a very dangerous food poisoning bacteria. And also the other problem is that it doesn't happen straight away. So it gets into your gut. You've eaten something that's contaminated. It's very powerful toxins, and it stays in your gut to 3 to 4 days before you even see any of the symptoms. And sometimes it's a week after. So because of that, it often can go unnoticed because, of course, you've forgotten what you've eaten 3 or 4 days ago. So it's a real problem, and we are seeing an increase.
Monica, I'm thinking that it's either meat or vegetables. Lidl talk about testing chicken meat. Otherwise, this has been found in so much vegetables that accompany the food. So is it both? Is it either?
Yeah, it's both. Unfortunately, it's contaminated water or food, so it's the feces. So often farmers, of course, use manure in the land, and they're meant to wait a year before they even plant anything to allow that for the soil to fertilise. But what's happening is something's going wrong either in that side of the chain, or it's when you have your leafy green vegetables like salads, for example. And we've seen a huge increase in the salads and the sandwiches, and of course, that have been taken off the shelves. It's because it's contaminated by the water. So the feces are either getting in the water from the soil, or the water that they're using is still contaminated by the feces. So of course, this is going to be a huge problem because we're eating more and more ready salads. Lots of us now go to the supermarket and will take a sandwich off the shelf. And that's why so many have been recalled, because they're just worried now that it's actually in the salad. And who would have thought? People don't associate food poisoning bacteria with salads. They automatically think undercooked meats. So it's both, unfortunately.
Yeah, I always associate it with these chilled sandwiches, and I never fancy them, I have to say, just from years of reporting on these sorts of stories. What would you say to anyone who's feeling under the weather, think that they could have potentially E. coli? I mean, how should they, A, report it, and B, treat themselves?
It's a really funny, well, not funny for the person who's got it. Any of your viewers that have had food poisoning and E. coli, it can be really nasty. So you're going to feel very, very sick. You're going to have stomach cramps. You're going to have diarrhea. You might have blood with your poo samples. So this is not a very nice. And you're going to feel sick, and you are going to be sick. So you should go to your GP. Unfortunately, though, there isn't any treatment for it. So all you can do is drink lots of fluids, stay hydrated, and be really careful, because it's one of those food poisoning bacteria where you can catch it from somebody else. So if you're caring for somebody with it, make sure you wash your hands thoroughly all the time. Make sure that you clean the surfaces where you've been working, because you can pick it up from that as well. Which is why I think it's spreading so quickly, and why everyone's quite worried about it.
Yeah. Okay. What about food sales here in general? Because people are not going to be buying sandwiches at the rate that they used to if they think this is floating about.
The problem is, I'm like you, Isabel. I'm very wary of anything on a shelf in a sandwich. I don't like it because you're relying on somebody to prepare it for you. You're relying on the temperature as well. The temperature that it's kept at can also contribute to this bacteria. So you just be really careful if you're going for a sandwich and that's your regular thing to do when you go to work or whatever. Then make sure that the refrigerator that you're getting it from is very cold. When we walk down these aisles in the supermarkets, they're very, very cold, and they have to be because the bacteria breeds. It loves a warm environment. So often, people just leave these sandwiches kind of on the edge of these refrigeration, and it's an open fridge. Don't forget these coolings, they're just like an open fridge. So that's why they have to be kept so cold. And if they're not cold, that's when the bacteria can start spreading.
Gosh, bad situation, Monica. But this sort of thing, how long would it take to bring under control, do you think?
I think that if what's happening at the moment is everybody's panicking, and everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, that's just recall, because the problem is if something happens and we have a very huge outbreak. So, at the moment we're seeing hundreds of cases. That is a big outbreak. The health service will be looking at that, and the Food Standards Agency will be looking at that as well. And I think that what we've got to do is really start looking at how we're producing these things. The problem is in the UK, we have very tight regulations on how we farm and how we produce our food, but so much of our food, so much of our salads, for example, are coming from other countries that don't have these strict regulations. So it goes right from the farm to fork, really. It's looking at what the situation is abroad, what regulations they're using when we import these salads and import these leafy greens, because this at the moment seems to be causing the most problems rather than the meat.
Interesting. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your advice there. Monica Price is a health and wellbeing expert with some very good advice.
Thanks, Monica.
Particularly bad if you are young or immunocompromised. I actually was on holiday in Corsica and my ex-boyfriend got E. coli 0157. He was seriously ill, had an ambulance, spent the whole week in hospital. I've seen it firsthand. It is not nice, and he was seriously ill. So do follow all of that advice.